Happy New Year's, Glam Dolls. I hope you guys are all fabulous today. Welcome to 2020, as Miss Barbara Walters would say. This last year, 2019, flew by so fast, and it is just absolutely crazy. It's like, where did the year go? I want you guys to go ahead and buckle in. This is going to be a long video. I want to take a trip through the last 10 years since we are into a new decade and go through the last 10 years of makeup. Normally, I like to do a best of the year in makeup, but I want to do something bigger and literally talk about the makeup that has changed the decade. Makeup has blown up in such a big way. Not everybody has been into makeup the way I've been into makeup growing up. All my close friends and family who have known me like my whole life will tell you, since I was 5 years old, mind you, I'm going to be 35 this year. So for 30 years, I have been into makeup. At 5 years old, while all my friends were playing outside, I would be with my little play makeup sitting on my front porch and playing with makeup. So I have always been obsessed with makeup, but makeup in the past decade has taken off, and it is like a cash cow now. Like, you get on YouTube, a majority of the videos are makeup tutorial, makeup reviews, makeup everything. And now every girl is into makeup, and I think that's so awesome. But with that, whereas when I was growing up, the only like high-end makeup for young girls to go to was MAC. That is it. That's pretty much all we had. And now we have so many different brands that have just jumped in and really made such an impact in the makeup industry. So I want to go through what I think are some of the most impactful brands and makeup of all time. And I'm going to be going through like the best primers, the best foundations, setting powders, all of that. I'm going to be going through what has made the biggest impact in my life, because some of you guys are going to have different brands, different types of makeup that have made a bigger impact for you guys than me. A lot of ours are going to be the same too, because I jumped on a lot of these trendy makeup hypes as well. So we are going to go through that right now. So buckle in, grab something to eat, grab a snack, or just kick back and let's go through, because this is going to be a long one, you guys. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and start off with primer. All my favorite primers from the past decade. And primer, as somebody who's been into makeup, a primer was not something that was well used like in my high school days. But one of the very, very first primers that I ever fell in love with, and I only have the baby size of it right now, but I used to buy this like crazy, is the Benefit Professional primer. But the Benefit Professional hit like a tidal wave. This was like most girls that I know's favorite. And it just is one of the best at blurring everything out. Like, you can't really see, but it feels like velvet on your skin, and it just fills in the pores. And I don't know why I don't use this more, but this is one of the first revolutionary freaking primers that I know every girl has fallen in love with. The next one that I consider one of the greatest of the last 10 years. I don't have it on hand. I only have the one that's kind of like a dupe for it, which is the Smashbox Photo Primer, which I will have a picture of it right here somewhere down on the bottom screen. I only have the dupe by NYX, which is the Photo Loving Primer. And it's this is like such a great dupe for it. It's basically a very silicone-y base, and it does the same thing. It blurs everything out. And I feel like this is a lot more hydrating though, because it's got so much silicone in it, and it does a great job at filling in the pores. This was like one of the primers I wore for years, you guys. Like, this was like the go-to primer. Then when I was a mom on a budget and couldn't always afford the Smashbox one, The Maybelline Baby Skin for a good 2 or 3 years was my next go-to. I don't even know if there's any left in here. This was literally, oh, there is. It was sitting in a drawer of mine. I don't even know how I still have this or how old it is, but it is literally the same type of consistency as the Smashbox, but like a quarter of the price. Another ride or die one for me, I think I was using this a lot when I first started my channel, and this is actually the one I have left over from it, was the Optical Illusion Primer that Urban Decay came out with a couple years ago. And this one changed my whole life, you guys. And so this is a nice pink one, and it's a lot like the Benefit Professional one in the consistency, but this one's a little bit tackier. You only need a tiny bit, but it brightens the skin and smooths everything out and just blurs everything. And it also protects against pollutants and everything in the air, which is why I love this. But this is a newer one from Urban Decay, and I really ended up loving this. They came out with like 4 different ones, and this is the only one out of that whole line that I really, really liked. The last one I had that shook the whole industry, oh my gosh, and people were saving up their dollars for this one. One of the most expensive ones I have up here is the Tatcha Silk Canvas Primer, you guys. This was not one of my favorites at all. It wasn't bad, but not one of my favorites, but this one shook the industry, so I had to include it. The packaging alone, it comes out like a little drawer. Like Tatcha always goes above and beyond with their packaging. And it's this little thing, and it comes with a little disc to like scrape it out. Really cute. And as you can see, I've had this a while. Let me get it open. But I barely made a dent in it because it wasn't one of my favorites. They say you're only supposed to use a tiny, tiny amount, but I just didn't see that it did enough for me. And I didn't see what all the rage and the hype was. I think like beauty influencers hyped it up. Maybe they were getting paid to do it. They hyped it up, and as you can see, none of them use it anymore. Everybody swore it was their holy grail, but nobody uses it anymore. It's like that season has passed, but boy, were we all saving up our coins for this one. I want to say, what was it, like $60, $70 for this damn primer? It was so expensive, and now it just sits in a drawer. But that was all from primers. We are going to move on to foundations. I'm going to try to condense this as much as possible because there were so many foundations. And you guys know, if you've been here from the beginning for the last 2 years, I am the foundation queen, you guys. The queen of foundations. And I have tried almost every single damn foundation that has hit the market, from drugstore to high-end, whether you guys have seen it on my channel or not. I have boxes, you guys, packing, moving boxes full of foundations. Okay, so for foundations, I'm going to go in no particular order, you guys, but we're talking about a whole decade here. So I'm not going to feature every single one because there was an explosion of foundations, and a new one comes out literally every single week, it feels like, from every brand. But we are going to start at the top, where all of us big girls graduated to if you were wearing makeup 10 years ago, which was MAC. MAC foundations were the holy grail. They were all we used. I don't own any anymore because in the past 10 years, I have grown up and graduated to lots more brands that have come out since then. But it wouldn't be a foundation review if I didn't include where we all started, because we all started from the bottom, and now I'm going to take you where we got to here. Believe it or not, most of the foundations I'm going to be talking about today are from the drugstore. So the next ones from the drugstore are the Maybelline Fit Me foundations. And I know people who still use these. These came out a few years ago, and they came out with the Fit Me Matte and Poreless first, and then they came out with the Dewy and Smooth. Now, when I was still doing makeup for clients, still doing it as a career on the side, this is what my kit was filled with because they had so many great shades, and the matte and poreless worked for a plethora of different skin types, whether you were old, young, dry, oily, combo. These were amazing, and the price point was killer. I don't know anybody who did not use these foundations when they came out. Another one, L'Oreal, drugstore, that I still repurchase because I love so much are the L'Oreal Infallible Pro Mattes and the Pro Glows. Now we've kind of moved on in the Infallible line where they've just come out with the Infallible Fresh Wear, which is phenomenal. But this line is amazing. And if you still haven't tried any of their stuff from the Infallible line, I highly recommend it. This is probably one of the best foundation lines from the drugstore that you're ever going to find. These are my holy grail from the drugstore, and I swear by them. Now, moving on to another foundation that kind of really hit the trends in a big way. I don't own it anymore, or at least this version of it, but it was the Estee Lauder Double Wear Foundation as seen here. And that foundation I wore like crazy. My skin is too dry to wear it now, but everybody I know that liked a good high-end foundation, we wore this forever for a good solid couple years. It made its waves around the makeup community. Another one for me that wasn't really big in the trends, but was big for me, if you've watched me in the past couple years, is the entire Dior Forever line. The whole Forever line, pretty much every Dior foundation, period, dot. For the last 3 to 4 years, I have been wearing Dior like crazy. I have every foundation that they put out. I have bought these like 4 times over because they are literally one of the best foundations I've ever used. They are very expensive, which is why I don't think it made the impact that it should have. And they make my skin look so flawless. They're medium coverage. They last forever. Little bit goes a long way. So I think the bang is worth the buck. But I had to mention this because this was like everything to me. I have 2 more and then I'm going to be done with foundations. And these are newer ones that I've been wearing like crazy. And the first one is Fenty Beauty. Now I'm not talking about this specific one, even though this is my favorite, the Pro Filter Hydrating Longwear Foundation. But Fenty Beauty as a whole, Rihanna smacked the makeup community upside its head with her makeup line, period, dot. Now, she came out with her first foundation, which I could not wear because that was meant for girls who have super oily skin. And at the time, my skin was so dry that her first foundation was a big no for me. But then recently she came out with the hydrating foundation version, and I fell in love. One of the greatest foundations on the market right now. And I think no matter your skin type, whether you're oily or dry, it says it's hydrating, but it's not overly hydrating at all. I think this is such a great foundation. And Rihanna kept her price points amazing for it being in a higher end store because it's sold in Sephora. But her price point's like $30, which is great compared to like my Dior being $60 or even Estee Lauder, which is like $50. So I think the price point on this is amazing and it's accessible, and the amount of colors, her shade range is phenomenal. She has set the standard for the beauty community, which is why she made such waves. Not only is her price point amazing, the quality is amazing, and her shade range is amazing. Rihanna really did the damn thing with this. The last foundation I am going to talk about for the decade is my favorite, so I had to mention it. It didn't really make the waves that it should have. It is a big one in the community, but it just didn't make the waves and hasn't really made the impact I feel that this foundation deserves, but it is the ABH foundation. I mean, literally, it just foundation. Like, this foundation is my favorite, you guys. Absolute favorite foundation. The skin, I'm wearing it now, and it makes my skin look absolutely flawless. It is the perfect medium coverage. You can build it up to full, and it will never, ever, ever look heavy or cakey. And the price point is awesome too. The price point is like less than $35. Again, in that $30 price point range for high end. I love it so much. Best foundation, hands down, of the year. This is it for 2019 for me. This is it. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. So I had to throw that in there. So that was a lot of foundation, you guys. It was really hard to condense all the foundations because I have probably well over 100 foundations literally sitting in a box right now. It was really hard to narrow it down to like those. But now we're going to move on to foundation's counterpart, which is concealers. And it's going to be around the same. I don't have as many concealers, but it's going to be around the same brands because if the foundation was good, the concealer is going to be good, at least to me. The first one I'm going to mention is Tarte Shape Tape. That concealer is still being used like nobody's business. Everybody I know still uses it. Everybody I know used it when it came out. I don't have it anymore. I just threw all mine away. I was scraping the sides of my last one. Tarte Shape Tape, which pictured right here, literally there you would have to be living under a rock, off the grid, completely out of like this world if you have never heard of Tarte Shape Tape. Everybody and their mom uses it. It's great, full coverage, doesn't look cakey, doesn't look thick, you know, it's just a great concealer. So the next few concealers I have are all considered higher end. I'm going to talk about them all at once because of the fact they all have the same properties, and we're going to be here forever if I go through one by one. First one is Benefit Boing Cakeless Concealer. The next one is the Estee Lauder Double Wear Concealer. And the very next one is the NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer. And then last but not least, one of the newer ones on the block as well is the Jeffree Star Concealer. So all four of these concealers are the only concealers in the entire universe that I have found that do not crease. These do not crease, you guys, especially this one right here. Benefit doesn't have as much coverage. I would say this is a light to medium coverage, but one of my favorites. The rest of these are a nice medium coverage to full. These two in the middle are more on the fuller side, but all four of these do not crease on me. They don't look cakey, and they just take care of business. So to me, these are the best of the best from this decade in concealers. Next, we're going to move on to setting powders. And to find setting powders for me, again, is something I've got very high standards on because I have dry skin and I have a lot of textures. So I have to find something that's not going to look cakey, something that's not going to emphasize texture, but that's going to hold all day because I do have an oily T-zone. So I'm going to start off with the drugstore. The first two from the drugstore, there's only two from the drugstore that I have found that I actually deem worthy. First one is the Maybelline Fit Me powder. And the next one is NYX Can't Stop, Won't Stop. The Maybelline Fit Me was the next one I found. Same thing, like it set everything down, but it just really made my skin look smooth without drying me out. And the Can't Stop, Won't Stop was a surprising find for me. I bought it to review on this channel and fell in love with it. But there is one thing that I do hate about it, which is the sifter. So it's got this little stopper right here, but it makes it hard for me to like, you can't turn it over and shake it and pour a little bit into the cap. Like it's just the packaging is non-conventional, but overall, this is a really, really great powder from the drugstore. The next few, I've got 4 more. Again, 3 are in hand. One of them, again, I don't know where it's at, and I have it. The one I don't have on hand is the Laura Mercier setting powder in translucent, and that one is, it's a duh. Like, that is just a holy grail for anybody in the beauty community. I don't know what I've done with mine because I've gone on to finding other ones. Now, the next one I found that I really fell in love with, and I don't know if a lot of people actually like this, but I found it earlier this year and fell in love with it, is the Becca Hydra Mist Powder. I've gone through about 4 or 5 of these already, and they feel wet when you first put them on, but they were great for me, especially when my skin was really, really dry. I don't use it as much anymore because my skin's not as dry as it used to be. But this is so finely milled, and if you've ever used this, you know what I'm talking about. When you first put it on, it feels like there's a cooling sensation, like a minty cooling sensation when you first put it on. It's the weirdest thing I've ever felt. Now, my favorite that just came out this year that has turned into my holy grail is the ABH translucent powder. This is my favorite powder, you guys, over Laura Mercier, over all of them. This powder right here really just makes my skin look flawless and doesn't make it look like I'm wearing a ton of powder. Like, it sets everything down. It's super finely milled, and the price point for what you get, like, this container just looks ginormous. There's a lot more in the ABH than there is in other ones. And one of these containers, this is my second container I've gone through, but it lasts quite a while. So this actually lasts me for months and months and months. So I really love the ABH one. This is my favorite right now. And again, I don't think this gets as much love as it deserves because it really is a great powder. So that is all I have for setting powders, you guys. Now let's move on to some color, you guys. So after we turn our faces into blank canvases, it's time to sculpt and put some more color back into it. Now I'm going to do blushes and bronzers all together only because I don't have a lot, especially a lot in blushes that I feel were worthy of a decade, you guys, of talking about. So I'll do bronzers really quick. Actually, I'll do blushes really quick, and then I'll go into bronzers. It's the Laura Geller blushes. I love Laura Geller. And again, Laura Geller is somebody who made her hit, I feel like, with her highlighters and blushes. This is Laura Geller's game. Her cheek stuff is amazing. Her formulas are amazing. Her baked blushes are just phenomenal. And last but not least, I've got one drugstore that actually did the damn thing with blushes. Milani's blushes I have run out to get. Now, this is their most famous one in Luminoso, you guys. This is the color. Everybody I know owned this color, and I used it so much that it actually hit pan. This is the first and only blush I have ever used that hit pan, you guys. That's how good this is. So that is a decade in blushes. Like I said, not much. Now moving on to bronzers. This bronzer that I'm about to talk about is the bronzer of the decade. The Benefit Hoola Bronzer. Everybody and their mother who is light to medium skin tone used this bronzer right here. It was cool toned enough and warm enough to where it could be used for contouring and for bronzer all at the same time. Best one, hands down. But we have the drugstore counterpart that also everybody and their mama used, which was the Physicians Formula Butter Bronzer. And this is still one that I use to this day. They actually finally came out with different shades. There used to be only one that they had, and it was like your basic one. This one is in the color light bronzer because I'm pretty fair. But I've gone through about 1,000 of these bronzers, and they smell divine, you guys. They smell like a pina colada. They smell so freaking good. Now, I can't talk about bronzers without talking about contouring. The contouring game, like literally everybody and their mother contours now. But there are two contouring palettes that everybody owns. You're either one or the other. And both of them are higher end, and they are the ABH contouring kit or the Kat Von D contouring kit. You are either one or the other. Now, I have the cream contouring in the ABH one. I haven't tried the Kat Von D cream contouring one, but both of these palettes I love for different reasons. I do like this one on a lighter day. I think the formula is better for like day-to-day stuff. This one's a little bit heavier, but this one, the pigment is amazing and it blends out amazing. The price point on this one though is a lot better, but you are either one or the other. And these are the two that took the decade by storm, just these two brands alone. Next, we're going to move on to my favorite part, which is highlighting. Now, highlighting, it was a trend that came on actually late in this decade, but boy, when it came on, oh, it came on, and I wanted to bathe in it, and I still highlight to the gods, you guys. I highlight every day. A lot of girls have already moved past this trend. They don't care. I'm someone who loves a nice glowy face, so I still freaking highlight all day, every day, highlight to the gods. And I'm going to just go through a few of the decade that really made like a statement. There was only one from the drugstore, one brand, which was the Maybelline Master Chrome. These came out a few years ago. Was it like 2 or 3 years ago? And had everybody gasping. This is the one Nikki Tutorials came out with. I bought about 4 of these. I actually did a giveaway and gave away one of these. But these pack a punch, and it was rare to see from the drugstore such a great highlighter. But this was one of the best drugstore highlighters ever. e.l.f. came out with a pretty good one too, but I feel like the Master Chromes were the ones that like everybody loved. Next, which was a really good price point, was, and this one was like a huge trend on YouTube, was the Sleek Makeup Palette. And I can't believe I still have this. This is the second one I bought. This one comes with 3 powders and 1 cream. Now the cream is actually a really good cream one. Let me see if I even have room anymore. Oh my God, this cream one is blinding. Actually, all of these are blinding, which is why it made such a big splash, because for, I think these were like $10 or $14, no more than $15, you guys. You got a really impactful, high impactful highlighter. These were beautiful, and I don't know why I don't wear these anymore. The next one, that was this little newer brand called Fenty. Miss Rihanna came out with a bunch of freaking highlighters, and the whole world went crazy. This one is in Mean Money and Hustla Baby, and as you can see, I loved mine to filth. I know her gold one, I forget what that one's called. That one was iconic, you guys. But this one was more my skin tone, which is why I liked it so much. This one came with a more natural satiny one and a really glowy one. Both of them just absolutely stunning. Next was this little brand called Jeffree Star. These are the Supreme Frost. Now I have his other ones. I didn't want to go dig them out, but they're these huge, you know what? I'm going to go dig it out. So I went and pulled a few of my Jeffree Star highlighters. You cannot talk about the highlighting game without talking about Jeffree Star. His brand has been around 5 years now. And Just iconic, you guys. If you have never bought anything from his, they come in these humongous. Now, if you want to see a comparison, here's Rihanna's, here is Jeffree Star's. Even his other ones. So these that are in these packaging, these were limited edition ones. The ones that are in these pink ones right here, these are the ones that are like here forever. But these are ginormous, you guys. Absolutely ginormous. You will never run out. I've had this one for years. This is Siberian Gold. Oh my God, absolutely huge. And as you can see, I've used it quite a bit and I've barely made a freaking dent in it. And the pigment is just sickening, you guys. These right here, he came out with this past year. As you can see, I get very excited talking about highlighter. And these changed the game for me. These have a lot more glitter in them. A lot more glitter. But when you put them on your skin looks wet, you guys. Like just dripping wet, especially when you blend them out. Oh my God, look at that. Especially in comparison with all the other ones. This is a blinding highlight. This is what a highlight to me should look like. Look at that. Just stunning. So to me, Jeffree Stars are some of my favorite highlighters. And I could not bring up highlighting without talking about him. Now I want to move on and talk about some eye products, you guys. This was really hard to do because, again, the past decade, I've become an eyeshadow palette collector. So to narrow it down to the most iconic, I had to go more towards brands and not so much specific palettes because there were so many, you guys. There were so many iconic ones through the years that I could film a whole series just on iconic freaking eyeshadow palettes that have come out. So we're just going to talk about the few brands that I thought made the biggest hit through this decade. So one of the first brands that I thought just really made such a huge hit, and I don't want to go digging mine out. They're literally boxed up somewhere because I'm getting rid of a bunch of my eyeshadow palettes, is the Urban Decay Naked Palettes, which I will have here. These palettes were such a trend for this decade early on. This was like one of the first big palettes I remember a lot of my friends who are not into makeup buying. So I had to include that here. They started off strong, but I think they're now beating a dead horse, and Urban Decay needs to just stop beating that dead horse and stop coming up with naked palettes. Next, I'm going to talk about a brand as a whole that I thought made such a hit in this past decade. They're an affordable brand, which I love. It is Morphe. I cannot talk about most iconic without talking about Morphe, you guys. This palette right here, the Jaclyn Hill palette, was probably one of the biggest palettes of this decade. Whether you like her or not, which I didn't when I bought this palette. This palette, I don't care if you liked her or not, you bought this palette. I don't know very many people who didn't buy this palette. I still love this palette, and if I run out of my favorite colors, I will go back and repurchase it because it is that good. This was the first time Morphe really stepped up their pigmentation and really created the formula that we know now. Now their palettes kill. And their price point, even better. Their palettes are like in the $20 to $30 range, you guys. And I have all their big palettes too, even though those are 40 bucks. There's like 40 eyeshadows in them. Amazing. Another eyeshadow brand that I have to talk about next that really, I own every single palette that they've put out. No joke. I'm not kidding you when I say that. Every palette that they have ever put out, I own. And that is Anastasia Beverly Hills. We started with the Modern Renaissance palette. This is one of the most iconic palettes of the decade, you guys. And I still dip into this palette from time to time. Still some of my favorite colors in here. The pigmentation was off the chain, especially for the time. They were so revolutionary for packing such pigment in. Just amazing. I had to bring my favorite one along. This Soft Glam one I still use like very regularly. As you can see, I've hit pan in so many spots. To now Norvina doing her own line with them. I mean, these are just straight up pigments here, you guys. Just, I can't say enough about them. I just love this brand so much. The palettes are about $40 a piece. They are higher end, but I think for the price point, you definitely get your money's worth, and they are just phenomenal. Next is a brand that I have to bring up. Again, somebody who I own most, not all, but most of the bigger palettes she's put out, which is Miss Natasha Denona. I brought a few of my favorites here that I don't have boxed up. She killed the price point game a lot. I like, when she first came out, I was like, I will never, ever spend $129 on a palette, and here I am. After I tried, this was my first Natasha Denona palette I ever purchased, which is her Star palette. After I tried her Italian eyeshadows, I never looked back, you guys. And her freaking formula is unlike anything I have ever tried. Italian shadows overall, Pat McGrath too. Hers are Italian shadows. Their pigmentation and their formulas are like nothing I have ever tried. And I hate to say it, but they are worth every penny that I have to save up to buy these damn palettes. Natasha Denona shook the game. She is where it's at. These are literally my 4 favorite Natasha palettes right here. This palette right here, this one is what killed the game. I feel like this is what thrust her into, you know, everybody's homes. This palette right here, when all these warm tones had made such a hit, this is what everybody was saving their coins for. I mean, literally palettes of the decade, mostly because it took us a decade to save up to purchase them. And the last brand I'm going to talk about made such an impact to me. They're only 5 years old, but they are my favorite brand in the eyeshadow game, period, dot. It is Mr. Jeffree Star Cosmetics. These, I own every single palette he has put out, but these 3 right here are so iconic because, especially this one right here, Blood Sugar alone, was the first of its kind, you guys. He put so much into his packaging. His price point, yes, can seem a little high, but when you look at what you get for the price point, it is not at all and worth every penny. He is the first person to ever put this much love and care into his packaging. Have you ever seen packaging like this on any other eyeshadow palette? No, never. Never, 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 never. Like everything he does, every little detail he does, the pigmentation, everything that this man does with his brand is just iconic in itself. And that's why I feel like he has the palettes of the decade. There, I said it. Fight me, at me, I don't care. He has the palettes of the decade. And apparently he is hinting at the fact that we are going to get a Blue Blood 0.2 this year for 2020. And last but not least, the one to end the freaking whole game for the decade, the Conspiracy palette right here with Shane Dawson. Just absolutely stunning, you guys. Absolutely stunning. Yeah, the eye game was killed with Jeffree Star. So I feel like that is a great point to end on, is our eyeshadow palettes. I would go into mascaras and things like that, but honestly, mascaras are a dime a dozen, and to go through a decade of mascaras and eyeliners would just be pointless to me. But this was my decade. These are like the decade of makeup. This, like these brands as a whole, everything I went through, you guys, like those are the brands that really made an impact on me, and I know they made an impact on most of you guys. So down below, I want you guys to comment what was your favorite brands or what was your favorite makeup of the decade. Let me know below. And if you have not subscribed to me yet, please make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and go into 2020 being a glam doll. You know you want to, like you made it this far into the video, you've stuck with me this long. Become a glam doll, and don't forget to turn your notifications on because I am a smaller channel. YouTube, they're a bunch of assholes and they're not gonna freaking put my video up there for you to see. So make sure you hit the notification bell and put all, so that way you can never miss one of my videos, especially because I've been so damn inconsistent with uploading. Sorry about that. We're gonna get better in the new year. I promise you guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed my decade of makeup. I love you dolls so much. I will see you guys soon. Next week, I think we have a giveaway that is going to be going up. So stay tuned for that. I love you guys. Welcome to 2020. We will see you guys soon. Mwah.